Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another session of Wacom webinars. Today, we are here joined with Dani Diamond. We're here for a very special session on revisiting the past to stay present, inspiration and mental health tips for retouchers and other creatives. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Elizabeth Garcia. I manage the social media channels for Wacom in North America and Latin America. Today, some webinar notes before we head start. It's about a 1 hour session, and we're gonna have a time for Q&A at the end. Please use the Zoom Q&A feature to submit your questions. I'll be moderating the session and jumping in to ask you relevant questions to Dani. We'll do our best to get through all the questions. Please follow Dani Diamond on social media. Here are his social media handles. As you know, Dani is one of our most loyal Wacom friends, and he's kindly volunteered today to talk to us about how to stay productive while this quarantine is going on. Shout out to our friends at B&H. Please stay tuned on the chat section. We'll be sharing some codes for you to save some money on Wacom gear. Thank you, B&H. Now I leave you with your host, Dani Diamond. Take it away, Dani. Thank you.
Hey guys. Are you guys able to hear me and see my face? That is the question. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen as well. Okay, good. All right, let's try this. I am pretty new to this whole Zoom thing. I didn't even know it existed up until like 3 months ago. But now that unfortunate situation happened, it's never been a better time, because now we're able to talk to people across the world and do all these video chats that we barely even did before the pandemic. So you guys know my name, Dani Diamond. I'm a fashion and portrait photographer based out of New York City. And as you guys know, I've been using Wacom since I started photography. So I've never been paid to promote them of any sort, because I've been a loyal fan of theirs since the beginning of when I started retouching. I started with the Intuos Pro medium, and I've since upgraded to the Mobile Studio Pro, which is what I'm using now to do my editing. But anyways, let's get to it. I wanted to discuss a little bit about our situation now, and different tips and tricks on how to deal with it, because as the time goes on, it gets harder and harder now that we are not, we don't have jobs, and all our jobs are canceled, myself included. And there's people all over America, all kinds of creatives, no matter what field you're in. It's rough times, and we're just sitting at home trying to find things to do with our time. So it happens to be that even before I got into this situation now, the pandemic, I always was prepared for situations like this, because in a fashion industry, we have 2 months where we're super busy, and then we have no jobs or anything. It could go on for a couple months. So at first, when we started, I remember that after the first season that was busy, and suddenly, boom, I have no jobs for a couple months. Looking out there for jobs other than photography. I told my wife, Liz, I don't think this photography thing is working out. I have no jobs for the next couple months. Maybe I need to find a different job. And you know, I looked for other jobs and nothing worked out, and I just stuck through it. And suddenly, boom, again, 2 months later, I got a bunch of jobs. So I got used to working in the fashion industry, and with time, I learned how to fill up my free time with different things that kept me busy, because it's very important for us creatives to keep our mind occupied and constantly creating, since that's what we are used to doing. So I went and I tried all different kinds of hobbies and interests that I always have. And you don't have to, you know, you don't have to look for something like super expensive or crazy. Like, for example, I do a lot of carpentry, and it's not the cheapest hobby, but there are things like I recently got into roasting coffee beans, and it's something that you actually save money roasting coffee beans, and it's enjoyable to do. It's so simple to do it. You just watch a couple YouTube videos, and it costs you a fraction of the price to go buy fresh beans. And that's something you could do right there on your stove with a cast iron skillet of and that's just one thing. I recently started taking my kids out into the garden and showing them how to garden. I hope you guys could see this video over here that I'm showing. It's my son picking raspberries from our garden in the backyard, and these are things that just keep your mind occupied and constantly creating, and this helps you get through rough times like we have right now. And and this is something that I believe people should be doing, even if we weren't going through this pandemic that we're going now, because as creatives, we need to take a lot of breaks from the computer to go out and to do something else. Because if you're constantly doing something for too long, you get tired of it, you get burnt out. So this is something I've always told people to do. In general, go out and find yourself different kinds of hobbies, of things to do, and keep your mind constantly creating. So now more than ever, if there's been some kind of hobby or something that you've always wanted to try, it's the best time to go out there and do it. And so what are some things that I'm keeping myself busy with, which is photography related? Because obviously I can't just go 2-3 months without doing any sort of photography. So actually, I saw this photographer on Instagram, Alessio from Italy, and he did something so creative. And I'm sure you guys have seen it like a million times by now. But he went out and I mean, he didn't go out, he actually stayed in, and he used his laptop to do a Skype session with a model that he's worked with in the past. And basically, throughout that Skype session, he just took screenshots. And so I tried doing the same thing, and it turned out pretty amazing, actually. I was able to, the quality is not amazing, so you have to make up for it by just being creative with the poses and just getting the lighting to be perfect. But people ask me like, oh, what do you do about the resolution? It's not great quality. But I always answer like, this is something so creative that you're forgiven when it comes to like the quality. It doesn't have to be billboard a magazine resolution. It's just being creative with poses and stuff like that. So this is something that I suggest everyone try out. And this is actually an amazing opportunity to work with people across the world that you've wanted to work with. Like, there are always models that I come across and I'm like, hey, where do you live? And they're like, oh, I live in Europe. I'm like, oh man, we're never going to see each other, we're never going to shoot. But now you're able to do these Skype sessions with people across the world, people that you always wanted to work with. So it's definitely something that you have to pursue right now. And it doesn't have to be a model. Like, I see someone is asking in the question and answers. By the way, guys, post questions, because I can't go on talking for 1 hour. So go into the question and answer section and go ahead and ask questions, and I'm going to try answering them. So someone asked, did I pay the model for the Skype shoot? And the answer is no. As I said, it's the perfect opportunity to work with people you've always wanted to work with. I don't think that I mean, obviously you could pay people to do it if you really want to work with someone and you want to support them. But no, I didn't pay. This is a model that has more than enough time to kill, just like me and the rest of the world right now. So if you don't have a budget to pay someone and you don't want to, there are plenty of people out there, and they don't even have to be professional models. You could really do these sessions more as like a chill out, like, let's hang out, talk about what's going on, and while we talk, I'm just going to take some screenshots. So it was a little bit tricky, actually. You're going to have to figure out the keyboard shortcuts to on your computer to take those screenshots, but once you get it going, it's pretty amazing. I had a lot of fun doing it. I did it a couple times since then. Okay, so let's answer a couple more questions over here. I see someone asked if I could teach how to export pictures from Photoshop and Lightroom without losing quality. So that's a great question, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that really quickly right now. So let's go ahead and first open up a high quality image. Let's find one right over here. I hope everyone could see my monitor. Okay, so let's say, let's go ahead with that one. So we're going to open up the image here in Photoshop, and I'm going to show you guys a real quick way. And also, I actually created an action to do this very quickly and easily. So the first thing you want to do is hit Control, Alt, or Option, and I, and that's going to open up image size. You want to bring your larger of the two numbers, so you have the width and the height. You can see my height is the larger of the two numbers. Take that number, whatever it is, and switch it to 2048. Go ahead and hit OK. And then this is the part that people don't know about actually. Your mobile devices and iPad, stuff like that, the language it speaks in terms of a color space is sRGB. So if you come over here to edit, come here to convert to profile, you're going to have to switch profile over here to sRGB from whatever space it is that you're working in. Like that, whatever you see on your screen here is what people are going to see on their phones and through Instagram. If you don't do this, you're going to notice that there's funky color changes and shifting in colors when you try to post that image onto Instagram. So go ahead and hit OK. And there you go. You're ready to go ahead and save it. But here is what I've done, and maybe I'll make this available online. It's very easy to make though. But I made a shortcut, which is, let's see if I can find it over here. It's called save. Let's see where it is. Right here, this one, this action right here. And all this action does, you could record an action by hitting that this button over here to this one right over here to record a new action. I just do this, and what it does is it saves the image, resizes it to 2040 on the longer edge, and also actually not 2040 on the longer edge. It brings it down to like 22%. You're gonna have to figure out the percentage according to the pixels on your image. Go ahead and save that again into a second folder, and obviously before it saves, it also switches the color profile. So let me show you guys really quickly how easy it is for me to do. So I go ahead and I finish editing this image, I hit play, and right now, boom, you see how quick that was? Now it threw the image right over here into this folder, and this is called the final folder, and this the parent folder over here is called buffer. I call that just buffer. And then you have I have two folders inside here that it saves it to: final, which is high resolution, and LR, which is low resolution. And you can see the image is sitting right over here at 1.42 megabytes. So that is the quickest way for you to save images without losing too much quality. Let me show you guys full screen how that looks. Right there. It's beautiful. So I hope that answers your question. Guys, keep those questions coming in. Okay, I'm going to try reading through these real quick. Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Somebody in the chat room is asking a really cool question. Can you cover how to obtain perfect brown tone without getting too red or too orange from Carrington Snow?
Yes. So this is my answer to any question in regards to post-processing in general, that there's no magical setting for anything. If there was, that magical setting would have been figured out by now and would have been shared and would be all over articles and YouTube videos. So there's no magical formula for anything. What the correct way to do retouching and to get great results is really your judgment. Forget numbers, forget settings, forget all that stuff. It's all about your judgment. So I'm going to show you guys two quick things right over here in your adjustment layers that I like using when it comes to doing color tones. Let's see if I could open up an image real quick over here. So obviously I am not going to do a full retouch on this right now, but I'm going to try to jump straight into the color toning. So to start off with, the colors of your image have to be likable, meaning that when you take an image, if you don't like the image and you would be cool with posting that unedited, then it likely you're not going to be able to change how you feel about that image with editing. So it's very important for you to start off with an image that you absolutely love before you even edit it. That's in terms of color, sharpness, all that, because Photoshop is not going to fix a bad image. It's just going to make a great image even better. So it's important that you start off with an image that you already love, and Photoshop is just going to enhance that. So as you could see in this image right now, I already love the colors of her skin. So it's not going to be so difficult for me to make this even better. So over here in Photoshop, let's zoom in a little bit over here. I like using two different adjustment layers over here. I like using the levels and also the color balance. So here's the levels. I'm going to open up that. You could see it in my layers panel right here by levels. And I'm also going to open up color balance. So in the levels, what I like doing is coming over here, jump straight to the blues. I like adding a little bit of blue in the shadow, and then I like adding yellow in the highlight, a little bit of blue in the midtones as well. And let me open this up on my second monitor so I can see that. Okay, now the image is starting to look a little bit more on the cooler side. Let's go ahead into color balance, and I'm going to show you what I like doing here. And this is my latest touch to my toning that I've been doing for the past couple of years. I like coming over here to shadows, and as you guys know, add a little bit of reds in there. I like adding a little bit of yellow in there as well. Then I come over here to the highlights, and again, I'm not looking at numbers or anything. I'm looking directly at her skin, and I'm changing things based on how I like it. So it's all about judgment. It's how I judge this image and where I think I need to go and what I need to do to stop. So I haven't been able to do a full retouch on this, so it's not going to look proper without the dodging and burning and the frequency separation to clean up and polish up that skin. But this is the basic right over here. Let me put these both into a folder, group that. So that's before and after. You could see how quickly I just did a little bit of that toning. That's before and after. Before and after. It's not a huge difference. As I said, maybe adding a little bit of brightness is going to help us bring out those colors. But that is my basic toning for all of my images right there. That was a great question. Keep those coming in, guys. Elizabeth, shout out if there's any other questions. All right, so I see someone asking how long I've been doing photography. So let me give you a little bit of a background on how I got into photography and how long I've been doing it. Sorry to all those who already know the answer to this, but I've been doing it for about 10 years now. And I was in business school, and I had no idea where I wanted to go with life. So I just bought a camera because I like the technical side of cameras. I went ahead and started shooting things and people that did not talk back at me. So it would be like flowers, watches, products, landscapes, stuff like that. And then with time, I worked up the courage to take pictures, to take portraits. But even after I did that, I had a very hard time communicating with people in front of my camera. That's when I started something called the project. For those who have been following me long enough, the project was me taking 100 headshots of 100 photographers. I figured if photographers are the hardest people to make feel comfortable in front of the camera, as you guys know. So I worked very hard on communicating with the hardest subjects possible. And once I mastered that, I was able to comfortably go out there and communicate with just random strangers and different people in front of my camera. And a quick tip for that, once we're on the subject, is people love to talk about themselves. For example, listen to me. I could be sitting here talking about myself for an hour right now. I love it. It's so much fun. And so does every other human being. Everyone loves to talk about what they're doing, their projects, stuff like that. So you have to go on that. Ask people what their interests are. Try to do a little bit of research on their interests before you even meet them, so you're educated in that area and you could properly have a conversation with them. But asking people what they're up to, what they're doing, just keep the conversation about them. They feel comfortable, and that's how you get people relaxed in front of the camera.
Hey, Danny.
Yep.
KK wants to know, what do you look for in a good background for portraits?
I think the answer to that is it's changed over time. But the one thing that I've always consistently done is made sure that my backgrounds are very far away from my subjects. My backgrounds are always, I never put my subject against the background. It's always shooting down a street, down an alleyway, along a fence instead of against the fence. And by doing that, the background, it just melts away and it's just a blur. It's really blurred out. Other things that I look for in a background is avoiding anytime that you have harsh highlights and shadows. For example, this is the perfect example right now on my screen of something that I don't like doing actually, because as you could see over here in the bottom left, it's very bright and that your eye really goes to there. So that's the reason why when I ended up editing this image, you could see it over here on the screen. I cut out that portion of the background because it was so distracting. So I try to find a very even backgrounds where there's no harsh highlights and shadows. Another thing that I like doing when I look for backgrounds is finding neutral colors, colors that don't stand out too much, and also colors that complement what they're wearing. For example, if someone is wearing a blue color sweater, I try to go with a little bit of a warmer background like that. If you look at the complementary color wheel, you can see that there's a nice contrast and that they complement each other. If anyone does not know what I'm referring to, if you just go to color wheel, just Google color wheel on Google and go ahead and take a look at the color wheel, you could see over here, opposite colors attract to each other, which is why people love sunsets, because the water is blue and the sky is warm, and they just really complement each other. So if you look over here, you have blue opposite of yellow, you have green opposite red. So looking for opposite colors to attract each other is something that I'm very aware of when I'm choosing the backgrounds. I hope that answered the question.
Hey, Danny, somebody wants to know if you can describe a bit about your Wacom. Kenneth Leon wants to know if you can describe a little bit about your Wacom setup and your favorite features on your tablet.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me actually grab my phone so I could show what's going on over here. Um, I'm wondering, are people only seeing my screen, or are they also able to see my face in my office right now? Because I want that to be full screen if that's possible, Peter.
We see both.
Okay. All right, let's see if we could switch around the video. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There's the button. I see that. Okay. All right. Okay. So over here, you could see, can you see my tablet, Elizabeth, full
Yeah,
screen, or that's not showing?
we see your tablet, we see your setup, your palette, your keyboard.
Okay. So over here, I have a movable arm that allows me to move my tablet anywhere I need it to go. This is only useful if you have a display, a Wacom display, so a Cintiq Mobile Studio. If you're just using like an Intuos Pro, a regular drawing tablet that is not a pen display, then you don't want to have it mounted like this. You need this mounted like this because it's tilted towards my eyes because I'm constantly looking at it. If you have just the Intuos, you would want to use a keyboard tray like this and just leave it there instead of the mouse and draw like that. Let's talk a little bit about the other things that I have going on over here. So these buttons over here, I have them to different shortcuts in Photoshop. For example, Control, Alt, the basic stuff. I also have it for anyone who's familiar with my action in Photoshop. This is for frequency separation, for Control F, and because those are buttons that I'm constantly pushing. Up at the top over here, these buttons, all these buttons, they're color coded. As you can see, that makes it very easy for me to see which action I want to play. So for example, this is saving an image. This is adding a flare. This is my color toning shortcut. This one is for some other action that I actually barely use. This is another color toning action. This is to play my retouching action. So as you can see, these are for actions. Up over here, these are for color adjustments, for like color balance and levels. This is my volume. I then have my monitors over here, which is 2 monitors at the bottom and then 1 at the top. I have different windows open, like the Internet Explorer. I have my, as you can see, my another window. This is the navigator window for Photoshop that enables me to, if I'm zoomed in, for example, let me show you over here real quick. If I'm zoomed in and working on the eye on my mobile studio, this is still showing the full image. So I could see how it looks without zooming in and out. If you have multiple monitors, it's worth setting it up like that. And over here is my loop deck, which is my latest toy. Very similar to the palette, but this one is extremely customizable, also very advanced and confusing to use. So I'm still mastering how to use that. And of course, I have my sound system. I can't work without that. So I hope that answered your questions. If you do have a Mobile Studio Pro, the setting I recommend using it in is that the screen should be an sRGB. So even though one of the most insane features about it is that it has Adobe RGB, I find that the colors match my other monitors and my phone best when it's in sRGB. If you do have it, definitely message me and I could help you set that up. All right, let's go back to this view over here.
Okay, Danny, thank you for showing us your space. David Daniels from the Q&A is asking, how has a Wacom tablet with a screen changed your editing experience as opposed to a basic tablet? Not a screen.
Okay, so that's a great question. If I'm being totally honest right now, having a pen display is really a luxury, and if photography is your full-time job and you do have the budget to go for a pen display, definitely go for it, but it's a luxury item. I retouched on an Intuos Pro and for many years, for like 6 years, and switching over to a pen display was an adjustment because I was looking down instead of looking at my monitors. It was an adjustment, but now that I do it, I actually love it. And I don't know if I could go back to an Intuos, but it's not, if you're wondering if it's a necessity to have a pen display, it's not. It's a luxury item. I believe, and this is not me promoting Wacom at all, okay? Even though I love you guys, before I even spoke to anyone in Wacom, I believe that the Mobile Studio Pro is the best portable computer in the world. And I had a MacBook for many years, and I carried that along with my Intuos tablet, but it was more of a clunky setup because I had to have a wire, and if I'm sitting on a plane, you can't have a tablet and your computer open. It's almost impossible to juggle both of them. This Mobile Studio Pro that I use now, when I'm at home, I plug it in and it doesn't use the processing power of the computer. It just runs off of my main PC. So it acts just like an external monitor and a retouching pad. But when I unplug it, it turns into a full-blown computer, full Windows. So it's not like an iPad Pro experience at all. This is a legitimate computer, like you have a MacBook. This is just as powerful, and you're retouching right there on the screen. So you can have this thing sitting on your lap, no wires, nothing. You could plug your memory card right into the side of this thing, and you could retouch on the go. So I think that these Mobile Studio Pros is the best portable option right now for anyone who is traveling a lot. Okay, I hope that answered the question for that. Okay, so I actually like this question I see over here. Could you give us some tips on model poses? So yes, the tip that I could give is the way I started off is I had no idea how to pose people. So what I did is I would just scroll through Instagram and through it was 500px at that time. I would take screenshots of every time I saw a pose or picture that I liked, and what I did is I would take those album of images and I would open up my phone on my on a photo shoot, and I would show the model, hey, do you want to try this pose? And since they would see a different model doing it and it totally worked, obviously, they are so down to try it. If you try to direct the model and you're not comfortable and confident when you're doing it, then the model will be like, I don't know, they'll try to do it, but it's going to look awkward. It's not going to look natural. So my recommendation for anyone starting out is go ahead and show examples to the models using your phone, and they'll nail those poses better than you would have been able to direct. With time and experience, you're going to learn how to pose people and confidently tell people, put your hand here, put your chin there, do this with your eyes. And at that point, obviously, you'll be able to do it without showing examples. But if you're having a difficult time, start off with showing people examples. Another thing is that when you pose people, I've gone around the world and came back in terms of experience that the most basic and simple poses are your best bet. Every time I tried to get fancy with poses, they always looked unnatural and crazy. And every time I went back to those images years later, I'll be like, what was I thinking telling her to put her hand in like that? It just looks so unnatural. So if you're stuck, say, hey, you want to just take a simple headshot, nothing fancy, just face me, close your eyes, count to 5, and just softly and gently open up your eyes. Boom, you're going to get a killer headshot like that, the most basic thing. So every time I get stuck and run out of ideas, I hit that reset button and I just do the most basic thing that comes to my mind.
Matt Baker had a similar question, but he elaborated a little and asked, do you look of inspiration from other artists on shoots for posting ideas? I know that you're saying you let them just be natural.
Yeah, totally. I totally, yeah. So when it comes to inspiration, I'm trying to think of the best way to answer this. So I used to look at inspiration, meaning that I would find an image and try to duplicate that exact image because I loved everything about it. But with time, my inspiration is more looking at my own work and trying to change my own work. So I don't have like a list of photographers that I follow and say, hey, you know what, I want to try this style, this style, and this style. What I like doing is going back in my own work and saying, how could I stick to my style but change things up? Maybe it's in terms of lighting, maybe it's in terms of posing, maybe it's the location that I choose. It is very important for us to constantly try to change, but at the same time, you have to have a consistent look to your work. So obviously I follow photographers and ideas come up in my mind all the time when I'm looking through my Instagram feed. But again, trying to stick to what I am known for best is my go-to. I hope that answers the question and didn't complicate it for people, but it's definitely important to find inspiration, and that's the way we grow. That's the way to do it.
Hey, Danny.
Yep.
Juan Diego wants to know if you prefer natural light or artificial light to work with.
I prefer natural light, but but I feel that using strobes makes your work so much more powerful when it's done correctly. So I prefer natural light out of laziness. When I am not feeling lazy and I'm feeling very creative and crazy, I try to pull out a strobe and incorporate it somehow and try to just balance it properly with the natural light. A lot of times that's on fashion shoots when we have a really nice location and, you know, I could afford to unpack a lot of gear at that location. When I'm not doing client work and I'm just meeting a model in the streets of New York City, very difficult for me to walk around with a flash. So those are usually not the times that I experience with flash. But whenever I'm able to, like we have a nice location and we have location to ourselves, like a private place, I try to use flash at those times. Before we go ahead and answer any more questions, I did want to say something before I forgot it, that it's very important for us to go back and look at old photo shoots. So I know the subject of this entire webinar was going to your past to create the presence, and this is what I was going to talk about, and it's only 2 minutes worth of talking, but it's very important. So try to listen and take it to heart and try it out and experiment with it. So there are a lot of photo shoots that I do. I come home, I'm busy with a lot of different paid work or whatever it is, and I forget about those shoots, or I go back and I skim through them and edit 2 images quickly. But if you go back to some of your old photo shoots with fresh eyes, you are able to find images that you're like, what was I thinking? I never edited this. I took it 4 years ago. So I went back to this photo shoot over here, and I was able to choose a killer set of images that you guys saw me post a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys could see my screen, but if you could, I'm showing the set of images that
Yes, you can.
uh, I went back to edit. Yeah, so it's very important for you to go back with a fresh set of eyes. And if you have your images like ratings over here on the side, so if you're looking over here in Bridge, I have a rating system over here where I rate the images. So turn off those rated images, so you see all the images that you did not rate. Like that, you go back to really the raw files of that shoot, images that you for sure skipped over and you missed, and go ahead and try to edit a couple from there. For example, like I went back to this photo shoot over here, and this photo shoot, this is the image that I had chosen originally from the photo shoot. And I skipped over this image over here. I didn't even think twice, because I was all about that connection with the eyes back in the day. And I never would have even considered an image where the model is looking elsewhere. But when I went back to the shoot just last week, and this is a 4-year-old shoot, I found this image and I'm like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. You know what? I'm going to edit this. And I edited it and I posted it, and it happened to be a very popular image. People are like, wow, I love that. You know, it's different. So it's important for you to go back to your to visit your old work and find new stuff to edit. Okay, so that's for that. Let's see what other questions we have over here. Elizabeth, if there's anything that stands out at you, shout them out. Otherwise, I'm going to look through them to see something that catches my eye. Okay, so I see someone asked about the best tip for using a reflector when you don't have an assistant. That's a great question. I'm going to open up a window right over here so you guys could see this. If you come over here to this thing called YouTube and you search Dani Diamond, let's see, one-handed, let's see if that will show up. Nope. Okay, we're going to have to go to my channel to see this. So let's see. There we go. This is called the video. This video is called the correct way to hold a camera. So this is actually how I hold a camera and a reflector at the same time. For anyone who did not see this, this is how I hold my camera with one hand. Let's see right there. You could see how I'm gripping the lens, and my index finger is on the shutter button, and then like that I am able to, let's see. Right over here, you could see me holding the reflector with my other hand. Now, the trick for this is that you buy the big reflector. It's 72 inches by I think 48 inches. It's a 5-in-1 reflector. Like this, it's a very large reflector, and you're able to set it on the floor like you see me doing over here. It's sitting on the floor, and I'm able to hold it with one hand. So this is probably the easiest way to work without an assistant. And sometimes if you have a chair, you just prop the reflector up against the chair and use that to hold it. So that is my tip on how I'm able to do 2-in-1. You got to be multi-talented if you're not
Yeah.
willing to have an assistant.
Dani, can you tell Hako Sonapol, what kind of gear do you use? What's your go-to lens or most used lens?
Yes, of course. So my lenses of choices is my 85-1.4, but I have 4 lenses altogether. It's my 105 1.4, 85, 50, and 35. They're all prime lenses because I love blurring out the background, and you're able to do that really well with those prime lenses. And My camera is the Nikon D850. For those wondering about Sony, I shot it for about 2 months, and I shot with their new A7R4. It's a beautiful camera. The focusing is insane. That's like next level technology, crazy stuff. But when it came to the colors, I wasn't able to edit those images. Like people really made a lot of comments about, oh, I like your other images more. The toning is better. I had a much easier time with the skin colors of the Nikon system, so I stuck with the Nikon system. But you can't go wrong with either one. It's really just preference.
Excellent, Danny. A little bit going back to the model tips for models. Anaya George wants to know, what do you say or do to help models feel more comfortable when they are posing?
Okay, so uh, the two words you should not use is the word comfortable or relax. Like people are like, "Hey, can you relax a little bit?" If you've ever said that to anyone, you know that really does not work. When you tell someone to relax, they're not going to relax. The best way to do it is starting off the photo shoot on the right foot, and the way you do that is you don't put your camera in anyone's face. You leave your camera tucked away. Invest the first 15 minutes of the photo shoot just talking to people. Just talk to them, and once they're talking and they're going, you slowly introduce your camera, you pull it out, you take a couple shots. And the most important thing is that you do positive reinforcement the entire time. So there was one time I was shooting, and after like a minute or like a few minutes, I'm like, oh man, in my mind I realized that I forgot to put the memory card in my camera. So I could have been like, oh shoot, there's no memory card. Or I just said, wow, those images are amazing. Wow, wow. We're ready to finish the photo shoot. We already got our shots. And she was like, oh, really? Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing. Meanwhile, there's no memory card in my camera. But my point is that you have to, from the beginning, positive, positive. There are times that I've shot with other photographers, and I've heard photographers like, oh, don't do that with your hand. That looks weird. Or like, move that hair. It just looks funny over there. Never use those kind of things. Always stay positive on your photo shoot. And by doing that, people automatically feel relaxed around you and feel comfortable around you. So words that I like to use are words like soft or gentle. Tell people, do you mind just softly turn your head, gently turn your head? And one other tip on this subject is, this is my go-to, and I mentioned this in a live webinar I had yesterday. This is the way you do it. You tell people, like you see them tense in front of your camera, tell them like this. Say, you feel all those muscles really tense, and don't have your camera in front of your eyes when you're doing this. Bring your camera down to your side and just look at them in the eye and speak to them. Say exactly after what I'm about to say. Say, you feel all those muscles tense in your face. You feel those, that your cheeks are tense, and your lips are the muscles are really contracted. Tell them, I'm going to tell you a tip on how you could just soften them up a little bit. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Say, go ahead and close your eyes and take 5-10 seconds. And all those muscles that you feel tense, just let them soften up a little bit. And you could do that by just breathing in and out. And whenever you're ready, go ahead and open up your eyes very slowly and just look at me. You don't have to do any fancy poses or anything. And they're going to close their eyes, and you're going to see their face is going to soften up. Their forehead is going to soften up, and they're going to go ahead and open up their eyes and look at you. You start shooting right the second they start opening up their eyes. Go bam, 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 bam with your camera. Take 3-4 shots right away. I guarantee you those are going to be the best shots you take the entire photo shoot. And guess what? I do this with kids too all the time. I tell the kids, hey, let's try something. Go ahead and close your eyes, and I'm going to close mine too. And by the way, they're going to peek to see if you're closing your eyes. So you better close your eyes. Those kids, they don't trust you. They always open their eyes and they look at you to see if you're looking. And you go ahead and close your eyes. And if your eyes are closed, they're going to close their eyes. And go ahead and count out loud with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slowly, not that quick. And then as soon as they open their eyes, go ahead and take those shots. And that's how I get that dreamy eyes that you see in my portraits. Some people do it very naturally, and it's called a squinch. Peter Hurley talks about it. But some people don't naturally have that squinch with their eyes, so you have to bring it out. And the way to do it is the way I just mentioned. That's the best way to do it.
That's awesome, Dani. Thank
I hope I'm not turning all those folks over there on a Wacom on your team over there into photographers after this, or retouchers.
you. You
Wacom
already
is
have.
gonna
You have a couple of
Wacom's gonna have like 5 less employees after this. They're all gonna become self-employed photographers after this.
after this quarantine. Many people will. Dani, we have a question from Dominic from Poland.
Okay.
He's thanking you for doing this. Now that you're very popular, you've grown a lot, but what helped you grow at the beginning?
Constantly coming up with new ideas, I guess. So I at first, if you guys remember, I had something called a ring light that I made. I with my photography skills, I took a piece of plywood and I built a massive ring light, like a 4-foot ring light. So that's something that I did, and I documented the project, made a video about it, I posted about that. That gained a lot of attraction. I wrote for F-Stoppers for many years. And wrote tons of articles for them and always linked back to my social media. That helped. But honestly, just being genuine and open, people really appreciate that. And I don't feel comfortable talking about this subject of trying to stay humble on social media or in person in general. But I think that just being real, people connect with you and they want to follow you and they want to see what you have to share. I hold nothing back. I share everything. You ask me questions, I answer. I have no secrets. I don't believe that you could, a business will be successful on secrets. If secrets is what's making you successful, I don't think that that's going to last forever, you know? So just, trying to be unique, coming up with unique ideas that that gain popularity on social media is very important. So that's how I did it. I just built up my social media. I really invested time into marketing when I started, and that really helped me gain clients through word of mouth and through social media. I guess another thing would be is you have to be open to new social media platforms, and people hear me talk about TikTok and they just dismiss it. Anyone who is not jumping on TikTok right now is missing out. You're missing the boat. When Instagram came around, Facebook was around for a while. Instagram came around. Photographers are like, no, that is not for photographers. That is for people who want to post selfies in a bathroom and pictures of their dinner. And I right away jumped onto it. And since I was one of the first photographers to join it, I had a very easy time building an audience there. And the same thing is with TikTok. When I started TikTok about 5 months ago, there were barely any photographers on it. There were like 2 or 3 other popular photographers on it, but now you could see how many people are trying to join it, and there are a lot of people denying the platform, and they're going to fall behind. But if you're always staying with the new platforms that come out every 2 years, you're always going to be ahead of the game. So you have to be open to change and be open to just trying new things. Okay, let's see what other
Dani,
questions. Yep, go ahead.
Michelle Baum wants to know, do you feel like lenses make a real difference?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, lenses is the most important thing. So when I first started photography, I spent like 6 months researching cameras, and then I just went with whatever kit lens came with my camera. And I was wondering why my pictures were no good. Over time, obviously, I learned how important lenses are, and that is the important thing. But I went to the extent of, in my tutorial with Pro EDU 5 years ago, I took the same I took the same lens on 2 different cameras, on a $4,000 camera and a $500 camera, and I took the same exact portrait with both of the cameras. Now, cameras are important. You know, they make your life a lot easier when you have resolution, dynamic range, speed, stuff like that. It's important, but your lens is the most important thing. And I believe that the 85-1.4 is the best portrait lens known to date, whether it's Canon, Nikon, any of them, because that focal length, it puts a safe a safe distance between you and your subject where you're not in their face, but you're also not 2 blocks away from them and you have to shout out to them, like some people are doing with those crazy zoom lenses like the 200 and 300 millimeter lenses. So I think that the 85 is a very nice balance in terms of focal length, where it doesn't distort your subject's features like their nose and eyes and face, but it also puts you at a safe distance from them. It also blurs out the background like crazy, as you can see in my portrait. So if you're going to choose just one lens, go jump on an 85, and invest in the 1.4 lens if you have a Nikon, or the 1.2 lens if you have a Canon. It's much more important than anything else.
Continuing on the camera talk about your Nikon, Manu is asking what settings you have there for your color profile.
That was for my camera.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It's in the default settings. If you're asking about those like special portrait and contrast effects, all that stuff is the basic, whatever came by default with the camera. If you're talking about like 14-bit, 12-bit, Adobe RGB, stuff like that, I'm pretty sure I just left it all in the default settings. There's no like secret settings on my camera or anything like that. I just have it all in basic settings. And I even use aperture priority for those that are wondering. The only time I'll shoot in manual is if I'm using strobes or I'm shooting indoors in a studio. Those are the only times I'll use shoot manual. Otherwise, I'm shooting aperture priority, because the most important thing to me is how much I blur out the background, and that's the aperture setting that does that. I don't care about the shutter speed. It's usually always fast enough, since I'm shooting outdoors with good lighting, midday, and I set my ISO anywhere between 100 and 400.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to combine two questions here because they were very similar. Well, Pilar Torres is asking, what is the best Wacom tablet to start editing photography? And somebody asked earlier what your tip was to break the habit of editing with a mouse.
Okay, those are both really good questions, and I know that the team at Wacom hates me for this, but there are the best tablet is the Intuos line. That is the pro line of tablets for us photographers, and you don't need their latest model. I'm able to use the Intuos 4. I used that for years, even though they had the newer 5 and the Pro and all that stuff. Just get whatever's affordable within your budget. You can get an older generation. Sometimes Amazon has them, or you could, I don't know, you could look in other sources of places to buy it. But B&H actually is probably my go-to place to buy gear, because their shipping and customer service is second to none. They really they don't try to sell you on any gear. I love B&H. They're like totally open about and honest about anything, and they don't push gear in your face. But I believe that any Intuos, make sure you get the medium. That's the important thing. You can get any generation Intuos, but make sure that you're getting the medium size. Don't get the small or the extra large, because the medium is the same exact dimensions as a 15-inch MacBook. So you're able to sandwich both of them and throw it into your backpack for when you're traveling. I also find that it takes up the perfect amount of space on your desk. The medium, the small is a little bit too small. The extra large is massive. So go with the Intuos Pro medium. And what was the other question? How I got used to using a tablet over a mouse. So this was a very difficult process for me, but I mastered it, and I share it, and I tell everyone about this, because this is the way to do it. And I think that this is the one thing that everyone is worried about it before pulling the trigger on one of these tablets is, man, I'm so good with my mouse. I'm so quick with my mouse. I guarantee you I'm better with my mouse than you are with your tablet. And that's exactly the view I had for like 2 years, until I pushed myself to go ahead and buy the tablet. And I told my wife to go ahead and hide my mouse. That's the only way you're going to get used to this tablet and break in. Have someone take your mouse and hide it from you, and like that, you are forced to jump over that learning curve of learning how to edit with a tablet. Once you do, I guarantee you're never going to touch your mouse again when it comes to retouching. And I tell this to people in my workshops all the time, and they always message me a couple months later, hey man, I did exactly what you said. I hid my mouse and now I can't edit without. So I was so good with my mouse. Personally, I was amazing with my mouse. But now I've tried to edit images in Photoshop with a mouse just to see the difference. And oh my God, there's no way to accurately and efficiently retouch skin with a mouse. It's just impossible. You think you're quick at it until you get good with one of these tablets. And these tablets is like, I guess it's like just the flow and efficiency of using a tablet is just next level, especially because a mouse, it's very hard to be precise pushing the button on the mouse and dragging. It's almost impossible to be precise compared to the tablet. So every single retoucher has to have a tablet. Go buy one within your budget and try it. I'm telling you, it's the only way to do it. And for all those who are listening who saw my video I made last year, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something funny with in regards to this whole subject. So I made a video and posted on Instagram of me. The name of the video was how to buy a Wacom tablet. And you see me getting really frustrated using my mouse. Then I take the mouse, I rip it out of my computer and I throw it out my window, and you see a car driving over the mouse. And then you see me take the mouse and dig a hole in my backyard and bury it. And then you see me hit that buy button on Amazon for that tablet. So that was just me demonstrating in a funny way what I went through and my process of my experience of switching from a mouse to a tablet.
I love that video, Danny. Thank you for making it.
Yeah, that was funny.
Because you're saying that you're so good with a tablet. Steve is saying he has an Intuos tablet and he's asking what shortcuts or hints do you have to make that the use of the tablet more efficient?
Okay, that's a really good question. So there's a video on my Instagram I posted about 2 months ago of the most important setting to have on your tablet. And I don't know if you guys could see this video of me and my face, but I'm showing you my pen right now, and there's two buttons on the pen, and I mapped these buttons. I'll show you on my screen to quickly zoom in and out. As you can see, my left hand is free. I'm not using it. I am zooming in and out and panning my image very easily right now, and I'm able to do that because I set up shortcuts on these two buttons. So go ahead and watch that video in my Instagram feed to see the settings that I use. It's basically I mapped one button to be spacebar and the other button to be spacebar plus control. That is probably my top tip for setting up a Wacom tablet. Those two buttons, they make panning and zooming very easy, and it's all about efficiency. Retouching is about the system you build for yourself for efficiency. The next tip I would have is if you have one of the tablets that have the buttons on the side, is that you map the buttons to do different shortcuts that you do very often. So for me, one of my buttons, like I said, on my palette gear is to play an action. If you don't have a palette gear, that's fine. You could map the buttons on the side of your tablet to do exactly what I'm doing with my palette gear, to play actions, to make selections, to switch your brush between black and white for when you're dodging and burning, to flatten all your layers. There's endless things. So you have to know your workflow and think about which one of those things in your workflow do you spend the most time doing. Just the next time you're retouching, be like, you know what, I noticed that I'm going to my filter menu, then going to Gaussian blur, then choosing Gaussian blur. I do that very often during a retouch session. Go ahead and in Photoshop, assign a shortcut to that exact feature in Photoshop, then go to your Wacom properties, and in 2 seconds, you could select keyboard shortcuts to that button to be that shortcut in Photoshop. These things I'm sure is overwhelming when you hear me talk about it, and just the idea of going through menus and setting it up. It sounds overwhelming, right? But what I've learned doing photography and being successful at building an efficient workflow is invest the time, even though you're uncomfortable and it's very overwhelming, invest the time setting something up properly. Because if you don't, it's aggravation for the next 10 years or the rest of your life while you're trying to use these products and programs. So invest the time, watch some YouTube videos. If you have a question, Google it. There's a million other people that asked a question, and you'll find a Reddit forum with your answers. Go ahead and set things up the way it should be according to you, and it's just going to make your life a lot more pleasant. And this is the reason why you guys see my office and the setup it's had. It's evolved over the past 10 years as I did photography longer and longer and realized that this is going to be my job for the rest of my life. I've invested more money into my workspace, more time into setting up my workspace, because when I wake up in the morning and I know that I have a set of images to edit, I don't want to be that guy, be like, oh man, I don't want to go and edit those images. I want to wake up and jump out of bed, make a coffee, run to my computer and edit those set of images because I love it. And that's why you see my office set up the way it is, with the way my tablet is on a swinging arm that puts it exactly where I want it. My sound system is a serious sound system, my monitors, everything, and my chair. These are things that you should really invest in. And like that, you're going to look forward to going and working. You want to enjoy what you're doing. So make it the most enjoyable way as possible. Okay, next. I mean, I could answer these questions for the rest of the day. So you, Elizabeth, whenever you say it's enough, but I'm good to go.
We are at 1 hour. We don't have a hard stop. We're going to answer a few more.
Okay.
I would like to stay with us and join us. I'm going to read a question from Mayer Ahmed. How much has product photography helped you in portrait photography? Did you ever?
I don't think it really helped me at all, actually. I think those are like so opposite each other. I got into product photography mainly because I was afraid of like directing people and just dealing with people in general. You know, I was pretty shy when I started off, so I did product photography, but I don't think there's any part of product photography that matches up with like the fashion photography I do, because I was shooting like watches in a studio, and it was all about like crazy reflections in the jewelry and just focus stacking images and shooting with a tripod and lighting and shooting fashion. It's like every single thing is different about shooting people outdoors with natural light. And I mean, even down to the settings on the camera, they're like opposite settings. So I'm not sure it really helped me at all. I would say if I'm looking for some type of similarity between the two, is product photography made me much more aware of details. And that's what fashion is all about. Fashion photography is all about noticing details and capturing them properly. So that would probably be the only thing that product photography trained my eye to see details that I normally wouldn't have.
Excellent. And we're going to have one more question. This one is from, let's see, Matt Baker. What are some of the ways you're keeping creatively inspired during the pandemic when you don't have new images to retouch? So let's say you don't have anything to retouch.
Right. So that's what I was speaking about before at the beginning of this webinar, of doing like a Skype session. Message people across the world that you've wanted to work with. Ask them if you could do a shoot, and try doing a Skype session. You could try shooting family members in your house, whoever's in your house. You could try photographing them. I am definitely sure that everyone has images on their hard drives that they have not edited, even though you think so. I'm sure you go back into your hard drives, you could find something to edit. Other than that, when it comes to photography, I say take a break. You know, embrace the situation. There's nothing that we could do to change it. You know, there isn't much I could do right now to create an income for myself. So I'm embracing that, and instead of just sitting at home and staring at the wall, I'm doing different things around the house that I've put aside. For example, I woke up this morning, and while my kids were eating breakfast, I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to swap around the things inside of the kitchen cabinets. Since I built my kitchen years ago, it drove me crazy that things are in the wrong cabinets, or I thought they were the right cabinets, and I went ahead and I emptied all the cabinets and I reorganized everything. So just embrace the situation that we're in right now, and we're just going to hope that it's over soon. But just jump into other things that you've wanted to up until now, and just try to get those done. And if there's anyone who still has a deadline, I mean, images that they with deadlines that they have not met and they still are backed up on edits, man, I'm telling you, you got to get back to that computer, and you have no excuse, because there's no one has jobs right now, and we're sitting at home for months. You better not be backed up with any images to edit after this situation is over. So when your client after this says, hey, I want my images in a week, you better be able to answer, sure, I have nothing else to do, I'm caught up on everything.
That's right, guys. No more excuses during this pandemic. Well, that's
Yeah,
it for us, guys. Thank you so much, Danny, for spending this hour with us.
of
As
course. Yep,
you
sure,
guys,
no problem. So
Danny,
you know what, Elizabeth, before we go, I want to treat everyone with a little bit of quick workflow, because I see that the question keep popping up if I'm going to do any post-processing through this webinar. So I'm not going to do a full retouch, but I'm going to show everyone my quick
yeah,
process. Is that okay, Elizabeth?
of course.
Okay, so over here I have my images in Adobe Adobe Bridge. And so I have my images right here, my rated images. So as soon as I find an image that I like, I go ahead and I hit enter. It opens it up in Camera Raw, which is a plugin for Photoshop. Over here, I quickly make my adjustments. And I'm not going through a full retouch right now, but I'm showing you my workflow. And again, I don't look at the numbers over here. I just look at the image real quickly. And once I have it where I like it, I go ahead and open up the image in Photoshop. So let's say right about there, I like that. Let's go ahead and open that image up. And the first thing I do now is I go ahead and with my patch tool, I go ahead and I'll retouch anything. So let's say this was a blemish. With my patch tool, I go ahead and clean up the skin of any loose hairs that I don't like, or any issues with the skin. And then the next thing I do is I go ahead and I play my action, which is included in my tutorial with Pro EDU. And I go ahead and play that. And this builds up my layers panel to be exact workflow that I need to edit the image. So you could see it only takes me about 10 to 15 images to retouch an image from start to end. And you could see my layers panel over here. I start off with there's 4 sections. There's the frequency separation. Frequency separation is about fixing any mismatched skin tones, or any inconsistencies in regards to the coloring or the lighting of the skin. The next thing I'll do, so that's just fixing up skin. Frequency separation is really just fixing up makeup and skin. The next thing I do is I jump into dodge and burn. And with dodging and burning, what I'm doing is I am basically I am highlighting skin and burning skin. So there's 7 areas on the face that I like to brighten up. One is over here, the forehead. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is 7. So it's these 7 areas that I brighten up. And the areas that I darken are pretty much edges, like right there, the jawbone, the sides of the nose. You bring that up into the eyeshadow area right there. Those are the areas that I darken in the skin. And obviously also over here, you're darkening collarbones, and then you are brightening up. And I'm just marking up this image to show you where I do my dodging and burning. After that, I jump into my eyes folder, and you could see how I built myself a workflow that's so efficient, and I'm able to do all this editing without going crazy, opening up new layers and everything. Everything is sitting right over here. And the next thing I do is in the eyes, I go ahead and I sharpen the eyes. Then I could do teeth and eye whitening over here if I need to do that. I'm able to brighten the eyes or darken eyelashes, stuff like that. That all happens over here in the eye folder. The next thing is the toning, and this is when I try to get a little bit creative, but I mainly stick with my signature toning. And I showed this before at the beginning of the webinar, where there's 2 main things that I like doing, is the color balance and also the levels. Those are the 2 that I like using to find the colors that are most pleasing in my image. Over here, I have a layer over here called Boost, and this just gives it extra pop and lighting. And the last thing I like doing is I like adding a little bit of brightness and contrast just to make that image really stand out. And also, if I ever need, I could dodge and burn the background. So for example, over here, you could see this area over here. is very bright. So I'll try to burn that a little bit over here with my dodge and burn background layer. And then sometimes I will brighten up parts of the hair to really make that stand out. But that's pretty much my entire workflow in about 30 seconds. I hope I didn't go too quick for you, but I do have a tutorial, and I don't like promoting my tutorial. I don't know. I just don't like promoting things about myself, but I do have a tutorial with Pro EDU, and since it's like 5 years old, they put it into the sales section, and it's significantly reduced in price. So if you're looking to learn my workflow, this exact action I use now is in that 5-year-old tutorial. The only thing that has changed is my judgment and style and coloring. But other than that, my entire workflow is in that tutorial, and you should definitely buy it if you haven't. I do plan on coming out with a new tutorial within the next couple of years. And you'll obviously see me promote that on social media. But this is, I think, the best workflow that I could have possibly created, and so many people are using my action to this day. So it's important that you find yourself some kind of workflow that's quick and efficient and works for you. All right, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Danny. I think we're gonna have to follow up with you on a very thorough Dani Diamond retouch workflow webinar.
Okay. You know, I like doing that. I'm down with that. And I have more than enough time to do these live webinars right now. So let's do it.
All right. Well, most likely we'll see you back here soon. And thank you so much for everybody who joined us today at the Wacom.
Absolutely, guys.
Thank you, Danny. And thank you, everybody. See
Sure.
you.
And stay safe, guys, and try to stay to the indoors so this whole situation is over. All right.